Shimano XT brake bleed done the wrong way. Never do it this way. This video is for entertainment purposes only. That's the one with gun. This is the upgraded all metal top with no plastic leaky cover. So get your port opened up here, folks, and you're gonna want to screw your cup on there. Got your lever level that in that plane. 45 going down that way. That's so your air bubbles get to the top of that port more successfully. That's the corner they're gonna travel to. Shimano mineral oil. Make sure you got something in there. Pistons pushed all the way back, and then I like to use a block with a little bit of gap in it, and then pump your pistons in just that little bit to get them up against the bleed block. That's an Avid bleed block right there. That's a Elixir bleed block, if I'm not mistaken. Rubber band helps keep it in there because it's kind of loose. The reason I like a loose block is these Shimano brakes have all kinds of clearance in the rotor. You can get a little more lever out of them if you just pump them in a bit. And pull this little guy out of there once you got your fluid in there. Give her some pumps. You're gonna see some bubbles coming out of that hole. That may be because I got a bad seal on the cup, but I like to think that's because there's air in my lever. That seems pretty good right there. Cap this thing back off. Yeah, so this thing's hanging here. That's how they bleed motorcycle brakes, I'm being told. Never done it myself. Next thing you're gonna want to do is, that's a hardware store hose. It's like 18 cents after tax. So that's a good enough fitting on that hose leak, but the zip tie is just keeping it from falling off, you know? Yeah, that's that. Don't open it yet. So then you just get yourself an old seltzer can or a beer can if you're an alcoholic, and just stick your hose in there, and that's where your fluid's gonna go. Alright, what you can do now is you can go ahead and pull that plug out again. See if you can get any more bubbles out of it. Give that lever a pump. Oh no, that's golden. Not a hard pump, just a little. You needing to loosen this here nut. You're probably gonna realize you don't have a 7mm box wrench, so just get your adjustable out, and you're just gonna loosen that just a hair. I'm talking a hair. And you notice the second you open that thing, a hair, fluid's starting to climb out that hose. That's what you're looking for. That's gravity doing its job. Watch that can. You gotta keep an eye on this. You don't want all the fluid to run out of it, so if you need to, just top it off as you go. Caliper here, which, you know, may not have too many bubbles, but you can hold it with your hand and then smack it a couple times with your wrench. That can dislodge some bubbles sometimes. I like to come back up here and give your lever another little tiny squeeze, but what you're gonna notice is, and helping the siphon really get going. But sometimes when you do that lever squeeze, you'll find that if the fluid's only right here, it pushes fluid to here, and then that fluid on the lever retraction is being vacuumed back this way. And if it's too much of a lever pull, or you do it too many times, it's gonna pull the fluid down in here, and then it's gonna bring the air with it, and it's gonna draw air into your caliper. So just make sure that's not happening. That probably didn't make any sense. All right, go ahead and close your valve there. Just go ahead and shut her off. At this point, I like to give your lever one more little flick or two. Put your pin in. Unscrew your cup. Cup's got a little stand it can go in. If you need to, top that port off. So take a syringe or a straw or something and just drop a little fluid down in there. Top her off. Screw back in, but it's gonna displace some of that fluid, so have a paper towel around there to keep your lever from getting fluid covered. Now when you put that cap back on, make sure you didn't lose the O-ring that hangs out on the bolt. It sits on there. There's a rubber ring in there, you need it. You know what? Alright, that's pretty much it. Make sure you clean your lever and your caliper real well with Dawn and water. Hot water, maybe not too hot. And then hell, hit the caliper with some rubbing alcohol and paper towels. Maybe even some Q-tips, you know, because if you go throwing resin pads in there and there's the slightest tiny bit of oil residue left in that caliper down by where the pads go, you're gonna have squeaky brakes that don't work. There's other ways to get squeaky brakes that don't work too, and that includes bleeding brakes the wrong way. And it happens from time to time, but it's not recommended. So just don't follow these steps, because that would probably happen. Yeah, and thanks for tuning in. Just come back here to say technique. I mean, don't, because it's not the right technique. And if these brakes are old, you know when your brakes are old. You just know for 3-4 years, way too hard. Or even a year, just depends on the brake. Don't even bother bleeding it, Go down there to the local bike shop. If these brakes are old, don't bleed them, just replace them. No point in bleeding old brakes. Another thing is, you don't bleed brakes unless you're putting new pads on it, 'cause it all works together. And it doesn't matter how good your bleed is, if you've got only 20% meat left on your pads, your brake's never gonna work right. It's gonna go dead on you, when you're out there really hitting. All right, over.